Hello, Phoenix. I'm Stewart Willis, and you're watching the Asset Preservation Hour. Today's show is going to be packed with information. We've got a great one ahead. We're going to first talk about the importance of having an estate plan to leave an easy legacy for your heirs. We're then going to talk about the big, beautiful bill. And in our final segment, the hidden risks inside your portfolio. To join us today, we have Nathan Faldmo from our Gilbert, Arizona office and Dan Murphy from Peoria. How are you doing, boys?
Doing great.
All right. You guys ready to get this party started here?
Let's party.
Let's do it.
All right. So let's talk about legacy planning. You know, to some people, they care, and some people don't care. Some people say, hey, I don't care if the kids get anything. I don't care if the charities get anything. I'm going to spend it all and bounce the last check on the way out to the undertaker, right? Mm-hmm. Others say, no, you know what? I've worked my whole life and I want to make sure I pass it as efficiently as possible. Now, when it comes to planning, legacy planning specifically, at the top of the list here, when it comes to estate planning, in my opinion, is to first have a living trust in order. What are your thoughts, Nathan?
If you want your money that you've worked hard for, you mentioned this, right? You've worked hard for your money. You've earned this, you've sacrificed probably, and if you want to dictate exactly who and when and where your money's going to, then that's the role that the trust plays. So absolutely, a trust is huge when it comes to an estate plan because that's what's going to dictate how your money transfers. And if you want to exclude someone, maybe there's someone you don't want to get some of your money, you can do that in a trust. And so there's different ways that you can navigate a trust to make it very specific when you're passing your money on.
So a trust basically says who's in charge and where does the money go, right?
Sure.
And we're using the word trust, but the trust is really an estate planning portfolio. And look, we provide estate planning portfolios for all of our clients that have investments at our firm. And you know, we don't do them for outside clients unless they're an existing client. But I think there's misconception of what the trust is. It's not just a trust. It's also it is the living trust document. It's the healthcare power of attorney, the general durable financial power of attorney, the certificate of trust, the will, which is the pour over will. Also includes a living will for end of life decisions, which we'll talk about in just a second. In all of those things. So it's a bunch of documents together. But Dan, there's sometimes a big misconception that these living trusts, that these estate plans are only for multimillionaires. Can everybody else benefit from it, in your opinion?
Yeah, there's a lot of benefit. I mean, to Nathan's point, the main reason that you should use it is it really gives you the opportunity beyond the grave, if you will, to kind of say, this is what my wishes are, and this is the sort of thing that I want to have happen from a legacy standpoint. I want these goods or these, ideal fine china or whatever else to go to certain people in the family, but it also really allows you to plan properly, and we're really a lot about planning. Making sure that, your wishes are understood as to, with life support and, do you want to be cremated? And Stuart, a lot of people will come into the office and they'll have conversations with us and say, hey, listen, I read up and said, unless I have 13, 14 million or so, there isn't a tax reason that I would do a trust. But there are a lot of reasons that you would set it up to make sure that things are kind of in order. Yeah. And so there's not a lot of question marks. And as corny as it might sound, that's really what we try to do. We try to replace a lot of those question marks with exclamation points, and a trust allows you to do that.
So when doing legacy planning, the trust is obviously the first step. And I just think it's really important that people, understand what the trust's point is, what the reason for it is. And look, we make a commitment to our clients that, I'm going to be there for your surviving spouse. I'm going to be there for the kids. But you need to have your affairs in order. I am not hanging out with your kids in probate court when they could have avoided it with a simple document set, right? Yeah. For a very low cost, trusts are not super expensive at all places. Some are. I mean, there are some attorneys that really, charge, a premium for estate planning. At our firm, we do it at a very low cost because I just don't want to hang out with your kids in probate court. And if you get the stuff in order, it's way easier. Now, look, I am not an attorney and I don't claim to be one. And, when you speak to our attorneys, they'll determine whether a trust is appropriate or a general will. But generally, the will ensures that you're going to go through a probate process. Can you explain what the probate process is, Nathan?
Sure. Essentially, probate just means it's going to go to the court for them to have a final decision. So having a will gives the court something to go off of. So it's not like having a will doesn't do anything for you, but in the end, it still is going to go through the court process. Having a trust, what that does is it actually just skips the probate or court process, and you already it's already outlines how the asset should be distributed, who should receive them, all that. So you skip the court process.
Well, one of the biggest mistakes I've seen with living trusts is that they're not properly funded. Where people have a living trust, they may have set it up years ago, they refinanced their house.
Yeah.
Now the house is out of the trust, or maybe they have their trustees, the people they put in charge. Maybe they have Joe the neighbor who died 10 years ago as their trustee, and people never get them updated. Now, I think there's a fine balance between making sure it's current and doing unnecessary changes, because I think sometimes attorneys will sell you updates and changes for every little law change that has no real tangible, effect on your estate. But, that's for the attorneys to decide. But, it's not a profit center for our firm. It's just simply a document we say, hey, you should consider getting. The attorney will determine whether it's right for you or not. And is it worth avoiding the probate process? Do you want your kids stuck in a probate process when it can be easily avoided, right, Dan?
Yeah. Well, something I'll tell you, Stewart, I mean, I don't know if I told you this, but one of the biggest reasons I came on and started working with you, you made a huge deal about, this company was originally established for, doing trusts for people that weren't named Rockefeller, right? I mean, it's a passion of yours, it's a passion of ours now to make sure that we're reaching out to the people that don't necessarily have all the money in the world and putting them in a better position. And a trust is one of the first steps to help them do that.
Well, I think, quite honestly, probate is kind of like a poor tax, right? Wealthy people stay wealthy because they plan. And now, to be honest, trusts have been commoditized to some extent. Like technology is easier. It's not, you don't have an attorney hand typing out the trust. It's hey, who's in charge and where does the money go, right? Now there's more complex estates that have special needs trusts. If you have a child that has, some sort of special need, or some sort of, if they have a drug issue and you want to control distribution, there's more complex versions of the trust, of course. But for a general estate, if your kids are fine, you know where you want it to go, who's in charge, where does it go, all of that stuff should be done, importantly. The living will, I think oftentimes the living will is understated, the role of the living will, which determines whether you want to be kept alive on life support, because some people say, hey, I worked my whole life for this money. I am going to stay alive until the last second. Then once you think I'm dead, I want to be frozen and then sent to Mars, and me and Elon are going to reunite when this Mars thing's open up, and I want to be kept alive forever. That's your right? I think here in Arizona, we even have some places, the cryo chamber, you can freeze you, and, but regardless of what your wishes are, I think your wishes should be your wishes, not a court deciding what happens to you, and certainly not family members. Just imagine this, Nathan. The burden it puts on your kids to pull the plug.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. If you're saying, look, I lived a great life. I don't want to be, I have a mother-in-law right now that's going through very severe dementia. And quite honestly, I don't want to be like that. I want to be remembered as, I may not remember everything, but especially here on TV, but listen, I want to be the guy you guys know, right? Yeah. And I don't want to be kept, and that's my wish, not yours. I don't know what yours are, but that should be expressed in a document.
I want to be crazy. What do you mean? I want to be known as the crazy one.
You want to be the crazy? You're going to be in the robe and all nutty? Yeah. Listen, but that's your wish.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that your wishes are respected. But for end of life decisions, it's a huge burden to put on your kids. When you have a living will, I think it relieves them of that burden. It says, no, my dad's wishes were that he wants to do this. He doesn't want to be kept alive in this situation, or he does want to be. Whatever your wishes are, I think the document ensures that your kids know how you feel, so it relieves them of that burden, that pressure of doing it.
Can I take that one step further too? It's also just communicating letting your family members know. It's one thing to be on a document and they could start to be like, oh, well, we don't know. You know, you start to question, it's just a document. How, were they really in the best sound mind? I think sharing that information with your family is going to help. Share them. You don't have to share them everything. You don't have to open up everything. And some people do. They say their assets and everything. But sharing with them, what do you want? Here's the document. Let them know where it's at, right? Just simple things like that go a long way when there's a transfer of wealth in a family.
Well, and Dan, look, there is a big difference in these different documents between the healthcare power of attorney and the general durable power of attorney. One is for healthcare decisions and one is for finances. You may have a child that is really great with money, but you know, they make decisions like, I've never said this before, but I'll share this. Hopefully he doesn't see it. My brother has a different religion than we do. He's a Jehovah's Witness, and you know, he's been very clear. Look, we don't do blood transfusions. So you've got to make it clear in your wishes, right? Well, that may not be the best person to be my healthcare power of attorney, right?
Yeah.
I mean, love him to death, but we think differently.
Sure.
He may be great with money, but terrible with my healthcare decisions, right?
Right.
That's why these documents, and I have nothing against that religion, and I don't mean that. I just mean everyone comes from a different personal perspective, and your document needs to fit you. If you're in a position where you've done your job, you've put money away, you have a home, and you want to see if estate planning makes sense for you as part of your bigger financial plan, we're here to have that conversation. You have to take action though. If you want to see if estate planning makes sense for you, you can speak to one of our attorneys, come in and have a conversation. 833-602-PLAN. What we're offering today is an absolutely free portfolio review and estate plan combination. We have 90 minutes to discuss all of that stuff to see if an estate plan and a financial plan makes sense for you. But you have to take action. Once again, pick up your phone, click on the QR code. That'll take you to assetpreservation.com where you can claim your absolutely free review. When we come back, we've got a lot more. We're going to talk about the big, beautiful bill and how it affects your financial plan. When was the last time your financial advisor called you? I know what you're thinking. Another retired guy who can't reach his financial advisor because he's too busy on the golf course. Well, surprise, surprise. I'm actually the financial advisor.
And I'm the retired guy.
You worked hard for your money. Now it's time you enjoy the course. And let us help make your money work hard for you. Drive your investments to the green with Asset Preservation Wealth and Tax today.
Do you want to leave a lasting legacy and make sure that your heirs aren't put through expensive and oftentimes unnecessary probate? Are you sure your hard-earned money is going where you want it to go? Don't leave it to chance. Find out if a living trust makes sense for you. Claim your free estate planning and living trust review by clicking the QR code or just call the number on your screen and meet with an Asset Preservation Wealth Advisor at any of our convenient locations in Phoenix.
Welcome back, Phoenix. I'm Stewart Willis, and you're watching the Asset Preservation Hour. Today, we're focusing on estate planning and dealing with the kids and your heirs as well. Okay, so when we talked about estate planning, Nathan and Dan, we talked about the first thing to do is make sure you have a plan, an estate plan. That's number one. Number two, in order of importance, in my opinion, is to have a tax plan for the kids. We talk about taxes all the time. But a lot of people never think through what happens when they're gone, right? What happens to the kids when they're gone? And once again, you may not care. You may just say, hey, they should be grateful they're getting it. Let them figure it out, right? I don't want to pay the tax bill. But listen, wealthy people stay wealthy because they plan, right? Sometimes it makes sense to pay taxes when they're on sale rather than down the road, because if you pass assets to your kids, there may be a tax consequence. So when we talk about that tax consequence, not necessarily estate tax, but what kind of other hidden taxes are in there, Nathan?
Yeah. Let me start with this. So whenever I'm talking with my clients, there's really 4 ways that you can spend your money. And of course, it's on yourself, a loved one or loved ones, a charity, and then the last one's taxes. And so what often gets overlooked is we're looking at taxes just in our life. And like you said, Stewart, now we have to actually look at when our money transfers to someone else, and often to our children or grandchildren, how are they going to be taxed? Because it's still hitting that 4th one, which everyone's like, oh no, I don't want any money to go to tax, right? I want it to go to my kids. well, how are we maximizing how much goes to the children? So by that same point, we have 10 years, when you inherit an IRA, you have 10 years right now to deplete that IRA, and now that income is going towards the income and whatever bracket of the person that inherits that money.
Because of the Secure Act. In years past, Dan, when you used to pass away, right? When you passed away, you could pass these IRAs and 401ks to your kids over their lifetime, and they could take it over, for the rest of their life. Now that it's compressed, and now look, people are living longer, right? So now you're passing these assets to your kids at potentially their highest earning years. And are taxes going up or going down from where we are today? That's the big question, right?
Yeah, I definitely would say they're probably going up. We don't have to get in that argument today, but yeah, I definitely think they're going to be going up overall. Another part of this though too, Stewart, to look at that I see with a lot of our clients is we have a lot of blended families. Right? We run into situations where, a loved one has passed away, and now you have a totally different family that now is merging, and it's a matter of, which kids get what, and, is the trust set up to help benefit the actual, surviving spouse? How do we make sure that they're taken care of?
I see a really good fight I can start right now here. Dan, do you have any experience with that situation there?
Those things happen, right? I mean, they do. I mean, from somebody that's actually, lost a spouse early on in life and stuff, trusts are one of those things that you need to make sure are established because, the person that passed, what that family wants, and you've got grandkids involved in a lot of stuff. And like I said, it's something that I see, and it's definitely a passion of mine to make sure that families have a plan in place.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I said it jokingly and no disrespect at all to you. I didn't mean it in that way, but you did lose a spouse.
Yeah. And
you do have children from your previous marriage, and now have another wonderful, beautiful wife that we love to death. But sometimes there's conflicted wishes, right?
Yeah.
Because you have two different families, and that's why it's important to have a plan for your kids, an estate plan for them as well. But when it comes to these, some of the tools, when we talk about a tax plan for the kids, is about unwinding the tax time bomb that you're leaving for them. And, the question is, does a Roth conversion make sense, so that you can take the tax hit in a very, measured way now rather than leaving it to the kids, Nathan?
Yeah. A woman came to me a few months ago and she said, my advisor's recommending that I do some Roth conversions. And I said, oh, great. What about how much? And she actually has a few $1 million in an IRA. And she said, well, he recommends about $10,000 a year. I kind of just looked at her like, I mean, great that he's talking about Roth conversions, but I just showed her this really isn't going to do anything for you from a tax perspective for the wealth transfer.
Yeah.
And she told me, she's like, look, I don't care about this money. I want the legacy of passing this money on to someone else. Like, that was important to her. And so, well, now you're passing on a tax burden to your children as well if you're not going to take, if you're serious about that. And if you're not, then that's a different story.
Well, awesome. I think that tax plan makes sense. Does it make sense to fall on the sword and to take the tax hit now? That's up to you. But it's worth having that conversation. I think the third most important thing, number one, was have an estate plan. Number two, have a tax plan for your kids and how that's going to pass. Number three, have informed kids. What I see all the time is when kids inherit money that they didn't earn, that money's gone, right? They make terrible decisions. Just had a client pass away, and this is one of my dearest clients. Been with us, almost 20 years, 15 years, 18 years, something like that. And he passed away, and his instructions were make sure you deal with Stewart, make sure you're still with asset preservation. And well, the daughter came in and he had an IRA account that wasn't with us. And it was a big joke between us because it always underperformed. But, it would have one good year and then like 5 bad years, right? And
he was diversified.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was a kind of a joke. But when he passed away, she came to us with all this. I said, well, what about that other IRA he had? We should be making decisions. Oh, it's all right. I know you weren't managing that, so we already chose our options. I said, well, what was your option? She picked lump sum. What she didn't realize on a $500,000 IRA that she was going to have to pay all that tax up front, right? And what she did is she said, withhold tax at 10%. Well, what happens is they spend this money, they lump sum this money, you withhold 10%. That's going to be a 37% tax for her.
Yep.
So where the heck is she going to get the other 125 grand in taxes that she was in the shortfall, right? So that's why it's important that kids, and we're suggesting it heavily now with our clients, that they come in, bring your kids in. We don't have to talk about your money. We just have to get the kids acquainted. If the kids don't know what to do when you're gone, that's when they start making mistakes. Or if your kids don't know how to handle money, let's get them used to it. Some of our younger clients will bring their 15, 20-year-old clients into us and start accounts and get them involved and have them sit in some meetings where we get them involved with saving money, because saving is a habit. It's a habit you learn young. Sometimes you learn it late and you're playing catch up, but let's make it easier for the kids down the road. What do you think, Nathan?
Well, sometimes people say, oh, I'm too young to go in and talk to a financial advisor. And I'm just like, there's no such thing as too young necessarily if you're actually seeking something where you're looking at your financial future. So to understand the impact that you have, what you do now, how it impacts you long term. And of course, a lot of our older clients, they come in and they're like, oh, I wish I did this. I wish I did that, right? And they want to impart this wisdom to their grandchildren. And then of course the grandchildren aren't interested, but that's one way to get interested. You can say, hey, how do you want to do you want to have $1 million, whatever that number is? Do you want a certain amount of money by the time you retire? That's now it kind of gets your attention. Well, okay, how can I do that? Without having to feel like you sacrifice everything.
Absolutely. And that's why I think it's important to get the kids involved to whatever extent you're comfortable. And if your current advisor isn't doing that, isn't having one-on-one conversations with your kid, or isn't even suggesting it, or if you're dealing with a tele-advisor or a robo-advisor, that's where things really can get lost there. If you don't have a personal relationship with your advisor that you're going to trust that your kids will be in good hands as well, maybe it's time to shake the Etch-a-Sketch and start over and find somebody that you like and you trust and you respect and you think will also serve, be able to survive the test of time to be there for your kids. If you don't have that and you want to find that, we'd like to see if we're the right fit for you. All you have to do to find out is give us a call. 833-602-PLAN. Once again, 833-602-PLAN, or even easier, pick up your phone, click on the QR code. That'll take you to assetpreservation.com to see if we're the right relationship for you. It's just like a first date to see if we're a good fit. Anyways, when we come back, we're going to talk about the big, beautiful bill and how that can affect your estate planning legacy for the future. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. See this? This could be your retirement portfolio slipping away without seizing some of the lowest tax rates in American history that expire at the end of 2025. But that's what we're here for, to help you take advantage of this rare opportunity. If you don't act now, trust me, you'll look back and wish you did. Seize the moment with Asset Preservation Wealth and Tax today. TikTok, folks.
Remember, it's not about what you make, it's what you get to keep. Have you created a tax time bomb with your IRAs or 401ks? If your financial advisor hasn't asked you about tax planning, you may be missing out in one of the most tax-efficient windows in history. Does a Roth conversion make sense for you? Claim your free tax planning and Roth conversion report by clicking the QR code or call the number on your screen and meet with an Asset Preservation Wealth advisor at any of our convenient locations in Phoenix.
Welcome back, Phoenix. I'm Stewart Willis, and you're watching the Asset Preservation Hour. We're going to conclude this segment here by talking about the One Big Beautiful Bill and how that can affect your legacy here. All right, guys. So we know it's been marketed as taxes are on sale, right? We're gonna extend the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, and it'll be permanent this time. How permanent is it, Nathan?
And until they take the eraser, which this doesn't have, and just erase it and revote and vote on something new.
Yeah, I mean, look,
that's the reality.
I mean, remember, it's as permanent as this Congress is, right? Yeah. And for a while, the political winds were shifting. It looked like the Democrats were going to sweep Congress in the midterms. We still don't know what it looks like, but with all this redistricting, it started off going one way, now it's going the other, and looks like Republicans have the edge now. Our concern was that the One Big Beautiful Bill has about 4 years left in it, right? Because we know that even if Democrats take Congress, that Trump will veto any change while he's in office. So we've got 4 years. Take advantage of it. Now, there's a lot of misconceptions about the One Big Beautiful Bill. You know, we were told that obviously taxes or tips would be tax-free, which we got. Social Security would be tax-free. Did we get that, Nathan?
No.
No, look, we got a tax break for many people.
Yeah.
On Social Security, but it's not directly tied to Social Security. It's tied to your age and your income. So Social Security is still taxed, unfortunately. But what was interesting is this last year on the tax return, some people thought, oh, hey, you know, you guys are geniuses. My income went up a little bit, but I'm paying less in taxes. And the nice part is they got this extra tax deduction that they weren't expecting or didn't have previously. Yeah. So, hey, $6,000 potentially per couple for each of them, or $6,000 per person for a couple is $12,000 extra deduction. That's huge.
Yeah, it moves them up to almost $48,000 of standard deduction there. Yeah. And you know what I'm seeing is that people are missing the boat, Dan, that there's free money out there right now in the form of this huge standard deduction for seniors that a lot of them, we saw a lot of new clients coming in, they didn't even take advantage of it. They had a ton of money in IRAs and they're still paying zero taxes, but there's another $15,000 or $20,000 of room.
Yeah.
They could have converted to Roth for free, completely tax-free.
Yeah, it's a huge mistake. I mean, those scenarios are where you need a plan. You're going to take out X amount of dollars, and a lot of people, to your point, you know, that what they typically will do is they won't spend that money, right? Because they're afraid of how it's going to affect them tax-wise. And you know, Nathan just explained, you know, there's an additional 12 grand that was there. That on top of your actual standard deduction, which is like what, 38,000 or so, somewhere in that vicinity. You start adding all of that up. That's plenty of money that you can now still be pulling over, and it's essentially a wash. So yeah, we ran into a lot of tax planning, you know, scenarios with clients to where there was no tax that was owed, and they still didn't take full advantage of the actual standard deductions and such.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Listen, the One Big Beautiful Bill was a huge benefit to a lot of people, but some missed the boat. Some did things that created tax consequences that had them phase out of those deductions. If you're not taking full advantage of the One Big Beautiful Bill and you want help on how you can do that, you need a tax plan that includes senior planning for taxes as well. If you want to get a senior plan that takes advantage of the One Big Beautiful Bill, we'll show you how to do it, but you have to ask for help. All you have to do is give us a call at 833-602-PLAN for your absolutely free tax review. Once again, 833-602-PLAN, or click on that QR code. That'll take you to assetpreservation.com. Thanks for joining us this week. I hope you enjoyed the show. Can't wait to see you till next time. Have a great week.